Okay. Last week, okay, let me come back. So, all of you can see my presentation. Can you see the slides?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
sir.
sorry. Okay. So last week, I think last week we kind of derived an equation that will tell you the equilibrium temperature for the uh, equilibrium temperature of the planet with atmosphere, and that equation is shown here. And have you tried it to do for other planets or something?
No, sir.
Hello, I see. Okay. What I would like you to do is that you can probably derive it for the Mars and Venus, for example. And of course, then you will require to use the different F solar constant. Okay. Then we also saw that definition of black body. What is a black body? The black body is an hypothetical object that if any radiation falls onto it, everything will be absorbed. Okay, nothing will be reflected back. That is the definition of black body. Remember that that's an idealized concept. There is no known any truly black body, but we can get very close to idealized concept by creating a cavity within a kind of a surface, irregular surface. So if there is a radiation that will keep on reflecting within these things, and if this temperature is maintained constant for this cavity, that is something called thermal equilibrium. One can have kind of a very close to idealized uh, uh, something as a black body object, and then we can study the property of the radiation under these circumstances. The black body radiation or black body and black body radiation has been very, very fundamental to the physics. I mean, I think you may all know the story that it is actually kind of an, uh, birth of the quantum mechanics has come out of the black body radiation. Okay. Just I'm trying to see the presentation on my phone also, so I can see how the screen looks like from you. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Because I'm sorry, I put the two devices nearby, and that's why this echo you are getting. What I wanted to see is how that screen looks like onto your computer, because I cannot guess. I can see my slides clearly, but if you are not able to see it, then you will not be able to connect with the this thing. So let me do one thing. I have to mute one of my device. Let me figure it out how to do it. Anyway, I will leave it. I just let me know if you are you able to see the slides as a full screen.
Yes, sir. We are able to.
Okay, okay, that's my concern actually. Okay. And I will keep the video on also. Okay. Where were we? So we look at the definition of black body. What is the black body and what is the black body radiation? And that I think work onto it started around 1859, 1860 by the Kirchhoff. I mean, he was the first person to kind of systematically study the black body radiation. Okay. Then, of course, I mean, experimentally, people were able to get the black body radiation, but the difficulty was uh, 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 theoretically explaining it. So, Rayleigh, the Lord Rayleigh and Jeans, they actually kind of were successful to the some extent using thermodynamics to explain that how the black body curve will look like, but their equation was only valid for the like a higher wavelength ranges or the shorter frequencies. Wiens also derived the equations, but he was successful into only kind of a shorter wavelength or the higher frequencies and not into the range where this Rayleigh-Jeans equation was valid. So this actually led to kind of a new concept in physics, and that's what called quantum. So Planck was the person who postulated that okay, the energy is quantized and they cannot emit any energy, but they can emit the energy only into the integer multiple of the h nu, and h is now we know as a Planck's constant. Okay, and then he gave, we derived this equation in last lecture that from the Boltzmann distribution how we can get this equation. So this is the equation, and the last week I wanted you to do a plotting of this equation. Have you done that plotting? Any of you have done the, I wanted you to plot the curve of black body radiation, spectrum of the black body radiation. Has anybody done that?
No, sir.
That's not good. I mean, you are, see, actually I wanted you to practically measure the black body radiation, but that would have been too much the work. But plotting is something much simpler task, and it's important. I mean, that black body curve, if you are going into any interview based on the physics degree, one of the interview questions is going to be that what is the black, how the black body curve looks like. Plot the black body curve for the two temperatures. I have actually given you 4 temperatures to be plotted. None of you have done that? Tejas, are you online? Hello, Tejas, are you still in the meeting?
Sir, I am in the meeting. Yes, sir.
Okay, you are Akhil. Okay, so I want you that next week I want that that plot has to be done, and
Yes,
that
sir.
4 temperatures for the 4 temperatures which I told, and you collect all, so all of the students can send the plots to you, and then you can share it with me through Google Drive or something. I want to see those plots. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Okay. So if you would have plotted that, the plot would look like these things, and I want you to tell me what do you notice into it. Any one of you?
Spectral radiance increases with temperature.
Yes. What else? Anyway, so if you would have noticed, I mean, many of things we take for granted. Well, yes, Kusali.
Intensity increases, temperature increases, that flux.
Intensity increases, temperature increases. That's not the correct way of putting it. Temperature increases, then intensity increases, because temperature is an independent variable. In this case, intensity is dependent variable. But anyway, the observation is correct that there is a relationship between the intensity and temperature. That is something Gustav Kirchhoff noted. He actually kind of why the black body radiation is important in physics. The reason is that it doesn't depend onto the matter, like gravity, for example. Gravity doesn't depend onto the whether it is the object is made of the brick or it is made of the metal or it is air or whatever. It just depends onto the mass. Okay, and in the case of black body radiation also, it doesn't depend onto the what is the cavity made of. Okay, it will just, so there should be something very, very fundamental, something universal in this law, and he expected that this law is going to be very simple law, but that was not the case. As we now know that this is the equation, that for the black body radiation spectrum. Okay. So as I mentioned before that, of course, this is theoretically derived curves, but there were practically measured black body curves were available. And one thing you will notice that there is only a single peak. Okay. All the curve doesn't have two peaks. I mean, we take it for granted, but it's not necessary that all the curves will always, the curves, observed curve will have like a single peak like this. Okay. Okay. And Wien was again another scientist that studied these things, and if you notice that for the 5000 degree Kelvin, if you look at the wavelength and where the peak of the curve is observed, and for 4000 degree Kelvin, if you look at the curve where the peak is observed, there is a kind of an so as the temperature increases, the peak shifts towards the shorter wavelength. Okay. And then Wien was a person who said that, okay, it looks like that there is some kind of a relationship between the peak of the curve and temperature. And he found out that this relationship is linear, and that what we now know as a Wien's displacement law. We will come to that again. Okay. What else? Of course, two of you mentioned about that. As the temperature increases, area under the curve increases. What is the area under the curve? What is the area under the curve? I want some of you to answer that based on this plot. It is already mentioned onto this plot. Any of you?
The total energy is being radiated, I guess.
Yes, amount of the energy radiated per meter square per second. That is what the area under the curve is. Okay. Right now, so if you look at this y-axis, there is an per nanometer kind of an unit is there. That unit will go away if you integrate over the wavelength. Okay, that's all it will happen. So this is total amount of the energy, and what we know is that as the temperature increases, the total amount of the energy under the curve increases, and that is not increasing linearly. And that we now know that it is the Stephen and Boltzmann, they derived this relationship experimentally, and they said that it increases as a T power 4, and that is how we got this equation T power 4. That comes from that area under the curve. Okay. So They found out experimentally, but they didn't had kind of an they could do it using the second law of thermodynamics. They could find out that area under the curve is proportional to the temperature power 4, but they could not give the distribution as a function of the wavelength, and that was after all given from the Planck's law. Okay, one of the advantage of Wien's displacement law was that if you measure a temperature of the sun, for example, or any object, if you measure the radiation coming from the any like a distant object like a sun, for example, and if you plot its spectral characteristics, you can find out the peak wavelength. Once you find out the peak wavelength, peak of the curve and wavelength corresponding to that, you will know what is the temperature. You can find out the temperature from it. Okay, so that is like you can do the remote sensing of the temperature for the different objects. You may be, all of you may be experienced now that because of this COVID-19, if you go to the mall or school or somewhere, there will be one person with a plastic gun-like object, and he will kind of point it to you. And what he's exactly doing? He's exactly trying to measure the radiation coming out of your body. There is an inside software that will find out what is the peak of that radiation, peak wavelength for that radiation, and based on that, it will tell you whether you have a fever or you have normal temperature. Okay, and then he will, if you have normal temperature, he will let you in inside the mall. Okay, so that enable the remote sensing. What else enable it is that if you can find out the peak wavelength, okay, you will find out the temperature. If you find out the temperature, you can find out the total amount of the energy radiated from that particular body. Okay, if you can find out the total amount of the energy from an body being radiated, you can do many of the physics. For example, where does that energy comes from? Okay, what kind of processes will be required to produce that much energy, and so on. So because of these laws, we know a lot of things about the stars and planets, which we are not able to visit personally, but we were able to observe them using the telescope, and still we know a lot of things about those planets because of these laws. Anyhow, one more characteristics, if you see this, which of course Wien's first observed, it that two black body curves do not intersect each other. Okay, they kind of go into the infinity. They will meet only into the infinity. They don't meet it any other. So if you ever go to the interview and the interviewer asks that please plot a black body curve for 5000 degree Kelvin and 4000 degree Kelvin, you should remember that many of the time what people do is that they plot one plot like this. Okay, this looks nice. It looks like a black body curve. Then they ask that plot for the different temperature. And when they plot it like a 5 degree, they will put it like this. It will go and close and go like this. No, that would be the wrong thing. That would that will tell you immediately, interviewer, that you don't understand the physics and why it is. Do you know why they should not intersect each other?
The temperature could not be safe.
Yes, so the relationship between intensity and temperature is unique. So in that case, it would
Sir, energy level, discrete energy level से इसीलिए intersect नहीं करते.
not because of the discrete, because of the discrete, this particular curve we are getting. I mean, if we this is an equation that was derived by the Rayleigh genes. Okay, and if you plotted this using this equation, if you try to plot the intensity, it will go on increasing. But then at some point of time, as in practically, if you do experimentally, it at some point of time it decreases. Okay, so that is related to the discrete level of the energies. Okay, but this, they don't intersect because there is a, if they would have intersected, it means you can have the same temperature, you can have the two intensities. Okay, and in that means it will not it means that that law is not universal. It depends on to the something to the object or something. Because they are not intersecting, that implies that this law kind of universal. It doesn't depend on to the object or something. Okay, if they would have intersected, means you have the same wavelength. You have two temperatures for the same amount of the intensity. Okay, so we have. I wanted you to remember this curve, and then of course he derived the. Planck derived this equation, and I also wanted you. I don't remember whether I told you or not. I want this equation is into the terms of the frequency. This equation is not in terms of the wavelength. In fact, he derived in terms of the frequency only. But most of the time, you will be using the equation that is in terms of the wavelength. And do you know how to get it from this wavelength? I think you can note down as this as an homework. So of course you have one pending homework from the last week's lecture, that is to plot this curve, and there is one more homework you have is to find out the equation as a function of for the wavelength instead of the frequency. Okay. In reality, now let us look at the Stefan Boltzmann law. So anyway, this equation I have already mentioned it here, but I want you to derive it. I want you to, from this equation, you should be able to get this equation. Okay. What we want to do is find out the total amount of energy. This was in history or in practice, experimentally, this was done before the Planck's law was available. But Planck's law, when it was available, we try to get it, that equation again. Okay. And just hold on 1 second. Sorry for the interruption. What we're trying to get is total amount of energy, which I want to tell you that Stefan and Boltzmann already done even before the Planck's equation was available. But question is, can we get it from the Planck's equation or not? Okay. So if you want to do the total amount of energy, what you need to do is integrate over to wavelength. Okay. Even if you plotted this function as a function of the wavelength, the shape will look like the shape of the curve will be similar to this one. Okay, so so we have to integrate this function as a function of the wavelength. Okay, and if you do that, are you able to read this equation or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ideally speaking, of course, you will require to do integration from 0 to infinity. But of course, as the wavelength increases, your amount of the radiation will be practically 0. Okay. So if you do this integration like this, what you will get is what you can do is that hc upon lambda upon kt, that is e power hc upon lambda kt, there is one term. And so hc upon lambda kt, if we substitute as an x, hc upon lambda kt, we can get this equation transform into this form. That will be x integration 0 to infinity x cube e power x minus 1 dx. Okay, and this equation analytically, this equation is not possible to get the integration of this equation, but I think it is possible probably. Okay. Anyway, I don't know how to get this in, how to do this integration. So I actually taken it from the book. But if you are very adventurous, you love mathematics, probably it will be good to hear from you if you have been able to do this integration. But if you do this integration, the number that you will get will be the pi power 4 divided by 15. That is the value of this integration. Okay. Okay. So if you substitute, so pi is a constant, 15 is a constant, and all of these terms except for the t here in the front part here, they are constants. So you can substitute B for them. Then you have the B as a BT power 4. And that, if you remember, that is the Boltzmann law. Okay, Stefan Boltzmann law. Of course, in this case, we are actually kind of in, this is like a total amount of the radiation that is coming out of, but yeah, so you need to have one more pi multiplied by here. This is because this is like an intensity in one particular direction, one per steradian. Okay, what you need is a total amount of energy. So you have integrated already over to the wavelength in this case, and then you have to integrate over all the solid angle. Okay, and if you do that integration, you get a number called pi. Why? Because BT doesn't depend on the direction. It is equally emitted into all the, it is uniformly and equally distributed over all the angles. So if you integrate, then BT you can take as practically constant. And then you can multiply by pi. So you get the sigma T power 4. What should be the unit of this F? You remember, let me go to slide 14. Okay. This is the y-axis, this is the B. Okay, we integrated with respect to the lambda. So B mu, in this case is mu, but if B lambda it would be B lambda. So lambda is gone. So this unit is gone. Now I have integrated over the solid angle. Which unit will be gone?
SR?
Sorry, SR. What is the name for that unit?
Steradian?
Steradian, yes. So steradian would be got. So what you would be left with? Unit of F. In fact, this is something we have covered in very first lecture. Yes, Malaydhan, that's correct answer. Watt per meter square. That is what we would be left with. And because it is a watt per meter square, because it's per meter square, many people call it flux. That is wrong terminology to call it flux, but that is what they call it. It becomes so much ingredient into the literature that many of times when they call it flux, so flux is not really a flux. Okay, it's the amount of the energy falling or emitted per watt per meter square per second. Okay, so you can see that from, if you know the if you have Planck's functions, you can have a Stefan Boltzmann law. So Planck's function confirms the Stefan Boltzmann law. So Stefan Boltzmann law was kind of derived with other set of the relationship, and so they both are consistent. Okay, peak of the spectrum. Okay, that was derived by the Wien, and in fact, the four law which we have discussed in the very beginning in the first lectures, Planck's law was actually discovered the last. Okay. What we are trying to do is that we have a Planck's function and we try to get the other laws. So Stefan Boltzmann law was the second last. Okay, so that we saw that how it can be obtained from the Planck's functions. And before that, even Stefan Boltzmann's law, Wien derived that relationship that we now know as a Wien's displacement law. So how do we get it from the Planck's function? How do we get Wien's displacement law from the Planck's function? If the Planck's function is a universal function describing the true physics, then it should be able to give us a Wien's displacement law. So if you have studied the derivative, you know that you can take a derivative of a function and equate it to 0. The value that will satisfy value, when you solve this equation for the 0, value you will get that will correspond to the maximum or minimum of that function. Okay. In this case, only one maximum is there, so there is no question of minimum. Okay. So this is an Planck's function, and let's integrate. Let's differentiate. So in earlier example, what we did was the integration. Now we are trying to do is an differentiation, and you get this values. You know how to do the differentiation of x upon y. I want somebody to tell me if you have a differentiation. If you are trying to do a differentiation, say f upon g, both of are then function of x.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Pooja, I could not hear your voice.
Yes, sir, we can do the derivative of x upon y.
Not x upon g. I want to have a derivative of f upon g. What will be the? There is a you know, you have to when you are in 12th standard, you will require to remember this f upon g. If you do it, and both of them are function of x. So if you do,
Sir, f dash dot gx dot g dash x.
say it again. Khusali said something, but I couldn't hear it properly. Anyway, if you did it, it will be f dash g minus g dash f divided by g square. Okay, and if you do that, this is what you will get. Okay, finally, I want you to verify whether I have done mistake or this is correct. I mean, you should not take it for the granted, because I have made these slides last moment. Probably there may be a mistake. You should check it. Okay, you should actually do the derivative and find it out whether this is correct or not. Or better, it will be, I have done it here for the Planck's function, which was for the wavelength. You can do it for the Planck's function for the frequency. Okay. Anyway, so this part, if you set it to the 0, this is the equation. So when there is a peak, so lambda maximum, lambda at that maximum, this value should be the 0. So I put the substitute this number and equate it to the 0. This is what I get. Okay. Lambda maximum equal to minus 5 e power ac upon lambda max kt minus 1. Okay. Now this is not possible to solve analytically, and that is for sure. Okay. I know that this cannot be solved analytically, but if you have a kind of, you know, there are many numerical methods you might have learned to solve the equation. Okay. And if you apply the numerical method, this is the number you will get. Okay. Or the T into lambda equal to constant. That is what the Wien's displacement law was there. So I have obtained this number 2897.8 divided by T, where T is in Kelvin. Okay, and the answer I will get would be in the micrometer. I want you to get what would be the relationship. What would be the relationship look like in terms of the frequency, and that is your another homework. Akhil, can you note down what are the homeworks I am giving, because I myself will forget sometimes how many homeworks I have given.
Sir, Akhil sir is not there, I think.
Is not there? Anyway, some of you actually, so Dhyani, you can note it down.
Okay, sir.
And give it to the Akhil.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Maybe you can, afterward, you can email me that this is what all the tasks I have given or something, so I can remember that afterward. Okay. The problem is that if it is a blackboard, if we are like a face-to-face class, I can ask some of the students come on to this whiteboard or blackboard and derive the equation actually. in this equation, if I solve this equation, that excitement, that how you actually came to this number, that excitement is lost. I mean, everything you can just see it. I mean, it becomes everything very boring. That okay, there is an equation, there are some constant here and there. Is I don't know even if I would be the student here in this class, it will be very difficult for me to read this and then appreciate that, okay, what does it mean? Why is that this is not analytically possible or something like that? Okay. Okay. So we have covered the three laws that we mentioned in beginning, which are very, very essential or very fundamental to the field in this field. Out of these three laws, four laws, three we have already covered. But the first law that was discovered was the Kirchhoff's law. What does it says that? It says that under the thermal equilibrium, isotopic radiation and emissivity of the object be the same as the absorbivity. Why it is like? My question is why he hypothesized this one. How you can now, of course, lot of things we know. It might have been very, very what is called a big discovery as for the Kirchhoff's time, but for our time, this looks very obvious to me. Okay, this cannot be any other way. It can be only this way, that emissivity should be the same as an absorbivity. If we had what will happen if these are not equal? Okay, then think about that cavity example. Okay, in this cavity example, what will happen that radiation will go. So you can kind of some part of the cavity can lose the radiation and some part of the cavity can get the radiation. Okay, so one thing can go on decreasing, another thing can go on increasing. Okay, but that will not happen. Why it will not happen? Because it will violate the second law of the thermodynamics. Okay, so under thermal equilibrium, if the temperatures are not changing, you should have, if suppose cavity keep on losing the radiation, then it will go on decreasing the temperature, or if keep on receiving the radiation, because these two are not equal, then it will go on absorb. It will absorb more radiation than available. So even though without violating the conservation of energy, you can have kind of a temperature change, and that's not possible, and that is why emissivity should be equal to absorbivity, particularly in thermal equilibrium. Okay. Now you should remember that Kirchhoff's law is valid only under the thermal equilibrium. It's not, but thermal equilibrium is a kind of an again idealized situation. You don't have always thermal equilibrium. Okay. But in the atmospheric sciences, something we call local thermal equilibrium. Okay, so if you take a small unit, small volume into the atmosphere, and your time period is not very long, you can always assume that this is current for certain time period. This is we call it a thermal equilibrium. Then from Kirchhoff's law, it follows that for black body E equal to A equal to 1. And that's very obvious, because very definition of black body is that everything falls upon it is absorbed. So A is what? It is a fraction of the radiation that is being absorbed. It is a fraction of the radiation that fall upon it. So total amount of the radiation absorbed divided by the total amount of radiation that was input onto the object. Okay. So by definition of black body, A should be 1. A should be 100%. Absorption should be the 100%. and because E equal to A, obviously emission should also be the 100%. Okay. Okay. So suppose you have two objects. Okay. Then emissivity of the black body will be always higher. You cannot have an emissivity higher than the black body. Why this is kind of an now that you look into terms of the equation, this looks obvious. But if you think about like this, you have a black body, and then you say that it has higher emissions than the say gray body or white body or red body kept next to it. Okay, that looks. If you were like a person who didn't know the these equations, you will find it counterintuitive. You will feel that white should be more emitting or something. No, it is black that emits more radiation. Okay, white reflects more radiations, or red reflects more radiations. But emission, when it comes to the emission, it is the black that emits the more radiation. Okay, so. Like many of time I get asked these questions. So what should I do? I paint the suppose if I had a roof that was painted black, whether I will get more temperature or less temperature in the room. Of course, it will absorb more radiation, so you will get more temperature during the daytime, but it will also emit the more radiation. So if you are suppose if you had a roof that will always remain outside the temperature, then it will do the more emissions. Okay, sometimes what I'm trying to say is that this looks counterintuitive. Okay, but this is the facts of the physics. Okay, so there are 4 laws of the radiations. So where does the radiation comes from? Radiation comes from the temperature of an object. Okay, and then they travel as a function of wavelength. We can describe them as an electromagnetic wave, which has a characteristic frequency and the characteristic velocities. And so, what is the basically radiative transfer? Radiative transfer is a study of the amount of the energy that is transferred through a medium of the radiation. That's what all about the radiative transfer. Okay. So we know that how that energy can be obtained in terms of the radiations. Of course, it can be obtained by the heating a body. It is transported as an electromagnetic wave, and then it reaches to some object, and that it can be absorbed. Okay, that is fine. But what will happen? So the problem is that if it was only the black body radiation and only the temperature dependence, then this subject would have been very, very boring. What makes this subject interesting is the various species. They are not all of them are black body. Okay, and why they are not black body? Why the say orange appears orange colored, or apple appears red, or different color things appears in different colors? Because these objects can selectively absorb some radiation and selectively emit some radiation, reflect some radiation. So what gives them this ability? That's our subject. That's what we want to figure it out. Okay. Okay. So even before the black body, people know about the absorption lines and how they come to know about absorption line. You might be all familiar with Newton's experiment of dispersion with a prism. Do you know what will happen? Of course, you should know. You must know what will happen when you pass a white light through the prism.
Can you repeat?
When you pass a beam of white light through a prism, what will happen? Of course, Newton did this first time, this experiment.
We see a spectrum of
So
colors.
different color that make white light will be separated.
Yeah, they will be separated, and you will get kind of a rainbow kind of a pattern. Okay. This
Yes,
looks
sir.
very obvious. It was not so obvious in times of the Newton. Why? Because what do you make of the? So if you have a radiation, now you think that you don't know. Now we know that a white light is made of the several different wavelength already exist within it, and prism basically does is to disperse them, separate them in different angles, and that's why when it comes out on the other end, you are able to see the different wavelengths separately from each other. Okay, when they are together, they appear to your eyes as a white. Okay, but if you didn't know that this is because of the different wavelengths existing together into the beam, it would be very difficult to find out what makes. You may think that maybe prism is doing something. Maybe when color it passing through the prism, it is giving it a color or something. Okay. Uh, I mean, now that we know the laws of prisms and these things, it looks very obvious. But if you think for a time period of the Newton where people didn't know what is the light and what is the properties of the light, this will look very, very kind of difficult to understand. Anyway, so Newton saw that okay, we can have kind of this dispersion. In fact, Newton didn't believe into the wavelength. He believed that the light is made of the small particles. Eugene believed that the light is made of the wavelength, and now that we know that duality of the light, duality of the photon, that there can be both wavelength and light. But of course, I mean that was a big debate, point of big debate at the time of the Newton. Anyway, one more thing I want to say is that let us say you have an output of one prism, then you feed into the another prism. You have the light comes out of the one prism, and then that output you put as an input to the another prism, and what will happen to that? Hello?
Sir, can you repeat?
Say you had a light, you know that when the white beam you put into the prism, and then it will come out as an like a separate dispersed light in different directions at different angles with colored beam. So that will appear as a color beam. So let us say you had not one prism, but you had two prisms. You have one light entering from one prism, coming out as a dispersed beam, and then that dispersed beam is again input to the another prism, oriented same way.
I think it disperses differently compared to the first prism.
It will disperse more. Basically, what will happen that the distance between the red and blue, that will be again stretched out.
Sir, are you saying something?
Students, there is some internet issue. Sir will be joining in 1 minute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now
Yes,
it's
sir.
audible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think my
Internet.
connection dropped in between. Okay. So I was mentioning about the dispersion of the light through the prism, and what you can do is that you can have kind of a series of the prisms to have more and more dispersions, and that is what exactly the Fraunhofer did. They wanted to find out what will happen if you stretch it too much. Okay, and what they found out is that when you disperse the solar light, you will see some in between lines that are dark. Okay, now that we know that this dark line as an absorption line, okay, but they are wondering that what is that, because that is how the spectroscopy was born. So Fraunhofer was the first person to very systematically study the solar light, and he actually cataloged the light. So sometimes when first time they observed, they thought that maybe this is because of the prism, or there may be some issue with the prism, or something like that. But what they notice is that the position of these lines is always fixed, okay, as a function of the wavelength, and that is what give the birth of the spectroscopy. And he actually cataloged the 500 such lines. Even today, most of line we recognize with what the nomenclature he has given. What I want you to, so this is the image of the prisms he used. They are kept into one museum in Germany, and this is the it would look
Sir,
like.
presentation is not visible, sir.
Oh, presentation is not visible. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Just 1 second. Now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir. Now
sir.
it's visible.
Okay. So, okay. So, Fraunhofer, I was mentioning, Fraunhofer was first to study the solar light, pass it through the prisms, by series of the prisms. So, of course, now that you can order it onto the Amazon or eBay, at that time he has to make his own prism. And this is an image taken from the, so these museums are kept on of the museum in Germany, which he actually used these prisms. And if you were to use, this is what he might, that image, the spectrum would have looked like to it. And I want you to see that spectrum more closely. I have taken one picture for others also. If you would have been a Fraunhofer, this is how that spectrum would look like to you. Are you able to see that bottom image?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And what do you observe into it? Let us say you are an experimental physicist and you kind of stumble upon this spectrum. You are doing some experiment and then you saw this spectrum and that looked like this. What is that you are going to note in your notebook? I saw a spectrum that had color variations from blue, dark blue to the violet to the blue to the cyan to the green, yellow, like that. You will note down the order of the colors. Okay, if you are a good observer, then you will notice that this color scheme is same as in what you see in the rainbow. So there should be something fundamental about it. Okay, if this color scheme was not same, then you can say that it depends on the prism. Okay, but you see into the rainbow, you see into the one kind of prism, you see same color scheme made from the different prisms, then you know that there is something fundamental about it. There is something that doesn't depend on to the material that causes to appear this person. Now that we know that it is because of the dispersion of the light, but that time people didn't know anyway. And then you see more closely, you stretch this spectrum, or you can, in other words, you can have very high resolution spectrum. You will see lines into them, and then you will note down this line. Okay, what would you note down about it? You will notice that there are some lines that are very highly absorbing, very dark, There are some lines that are gray. Okay. There are some lines that are white. There are some lines that are not so wide. Okay. What I'm trying to describe here is actually the word for them is the shape of the line. Okay. If you look at the shape of the line into the spectrum with your eye, it would look like this. There will be some thick lines, very dark lines, or gray lines, or wide lines, or narrow lines, and so on. Okay. But if you had an instrument that will measure the intensity as a function of wavelength, this is what it will look like. Okay. You have like solar light coming, and then intensity increasing, but then there are like, you remember the earlier curve that I saw, theoretically calculated curve, it looked very smooth. This also looks like a black body radiation curve, but it's not any more smooth. It has a lot of zigzag things on its body. Okay. And for deep that you are seeing here, that corresponds to each of that line that you would have seen with your eyes. Okay. And if you remember that, okay, this line is in this wavelength, you can come and see into this in this curve. Okay, a dip is here. You can see, for example, this line is in like wide line. Okay, it start decreasing at some wavelength, goes minimum, then again increases, and then again meets the same curve as here. Whereas this line, for example, you see is very narrow line. It goes much deeper, but it's still a very narrow line. Okay, so width of the line, if you would have measured, it is small. So this is what it will look like, and this is so what, when we as a physicist we say the shape of the line, what does it mean? Is the shape of this dips, how they would look like if you would have again zoomed this image. If you would have zoomed only this part, how this curve that is here as shown as a dip would look like. That is what is the we mean by the shape of the line. But first we need to understand why these lines are there in the first place. Okay, and that understanding, so Fraunhofer did this observation something around 1820 or so. Okay, even before that. And first time the correct explanation of this line comes something around 1920. So that it took more than 100 years to figure it out why these lines are there. Okay, and that understanding came from the Niels Bohr. He was a Danish scientist, and he was actually postdoctoral student of the Rutherford. Rutherford's name you might have heard. Okay, he was also another great scientist. I think he was basically from New Zealand, but then he worked into the England. And what the Rutherford did, the experiment, you remember? He actually kind of did this electron scattering experiment. Okay, so he bombarded the particle, and then he noticed the scattering. In fact, the experiment that he did, it is also one of the great experiment even for the statistical students, that those who trying to find out the equation from the observations. Okay, we will cover that some other time, but right now you remember that he figured it out that so atom is made of a nucleus that is very, very dense, and then there are electrons around it. But the problem was this: suppose electrons are orbiting like our Earth is orbiting around the sun and so on like this. Any orbiting electric charge will radiate the radiation, and the wavelength of the radiation will be proportional to the radius of the orbit. Okay, so that was his kind of a proposal. So problem was this thing: if it radiates the radiation, electromagnetic radiations, of course you will get some radiation of certain wavelength, and then because it loses the energy, so it loses the energy means what is the energy here in this case? The energy is the motion of the kinetic energy of the electron that the velocity of the electron. So that will go on decreasing. And as the velocity decreases, its radius will decrease. So you will see that radiation as it goes down, as electron goes down, radiation should go on, the wavelength of the radiation should go on decreasing, or the frequency of the radiation should go on increasing. And eventually the electron will spiral and fall into the nucleus. So any nucleus, any atom will not be able to survive more than say 16 picoseconds, because within that time electron will fall down inside it. So they cannot explain it. If the electrons are orbiting around the nucleus, then what prevents it from the falling? That was an issue with the classical physics. Okay, so when Niels Bohr joined him as a postdoctoral student, already Planck's function was known. So Planck's function, how did Planck derive this function? So he assumed that energy is quantized. He in fact did not believe that energy is really quantized. He thought that this is kind of a mathematical arrangement. Okay, but he did not believe in the real quantization of the energy. But by this time, so that was something around 1900 or 1905 or something. And by the 20 years later, quantization of the energies. Okay, so he said, so Niels Bohr made three hypotheses. One, that electrons can be in a certain orbit, and as long as they are in that orbit, they will not emit the radiation. Okay, and there cannot be any orbit, but this orbit is an integer multiple of its angular momentum. So if I give in terms of the equation, so let's say angular momentum of the electron is L, then it can have orbit, stationary orbit, where it will not radiate the radiation, not fall down, will be given by this equation, that is integer number multiplied by Planck's constant divided by 2 pi. H upon 2 pi is also known as a reduced Planck's function, reduced Planck's constant. Okay. So he hypothesized that electron cannot be just in any orbit. They can be in an orbit that is given by this equation, and when they are in this orbit, they cannot radiate the radiations. And when electron jumps from one orbit to another orbit, either it will lose the radiation or gain the radiation depending on the level of the energy. Okay, and that energy will correspond to the delta E, will correspond to the h nu. So that will be and the nu is given by this equation. So how does this equation? So electron has two energies. One is the potential energy, because there is an electrostatic force between electron and nucleus, and it has also energy because of the motion around the nucleus. So if you combine these equations, this is what you will get equation. Okay, and this equation you can equate it to this equation. So RH is called Rydberg constant. In this equation, m is mass of the electron, E is charge of the electron, epsilon is permissivity of the space, H is of course Planck's constant, and N is integers. So this equation was actually known before the Planck derived, before the Niels Bohr derived this equation. This equation was derived by the Rydberg, and he was trying to explain, he derived this equation experimentally or empirically while trying to explain the spectrum of the hydrogen atom. Okay, and frequency, so Rydberg gave this equation, and Planck's explanation gave what should be the theoretical value of RH. Okay, so this is the equation. So any radiation, so you will not have continuous radiations. You will have radiation only given by this equation of the radiation of the frequency or wavelength given by this radiation. So J is an integer, K is an integer. J is an integer of the lower energy state, K is an integer of the higher energy state. Okay. So how that know that, okay, so why there is no continuous spectrum, but there are only certain wavelength, and why this depends on to the molecules. So let me go back to the previous slide. So for example, this D line you might have studied. Okay, you can do this experiment at home. You can take you can mix salt into the water. Okay, take it onto the some kind of a spray or something, and then there is a flame. You can spray that water droplets into the flame of any gas flame or any lamp flame. You will notice suddenly there is an orange light will come out, and that is because of this wavelength. So why this spectroscopy is called like a fingerprinting of the molecules? Because at which wavelength they will appear, that depends on to the material of the so whether it is hydrogen, whether it's helium, whether it is sodium, each one has its own unique set of the lines, absorption lines. Okay, and that's how most of the instruments actually work. Okay, so in this equation, if you look at this equation, this RH, okay, that is a Rydberg's constant, and that depends on to the molecule. Okay, of course, this equation he what derived is only for the hydrogen atom, because hydrogen atom is very simple atom. You have only one electron and only one proton. Okay, so your equation looks very simple, but if you had to do it for some complex molecule, let's say CO2, for example, the equation will look much more complex. But using this equation, if you find out, so you can, using this equation, you can find out the energy level for the different values of the n, and n equal to 1 will be the lowest energy level. And using this equation, you can find out what would be the wavelength of the emitted radiation. So if you do this plotting, let's say, so this y-axis is an energy levels, and it is shown in electron volt. So the energy level corresponding to n equal to 1 correspond to this value. I think it's something around 13 point something. Okay, then n equal to 2 energy level correspond to this energy values. Okay, en values of the E. 3, 4, and so on, like this. Okay, what you notice is that there is a large difference between this and this energy level, but this difference goes on decreasing as your n goes on increasing. Okay, so if you had an electron that was into the n equal to 1, this energy level, and then radiation falls onto it, it will absorb that radiation, and then it will go to the n equal to 2 radiation, to n equal to 2 level. Okay, then it will absorb the certain, so it will absorb the radiation of this value, this energy level, that will correspond to this energy level. Okay, so sorry, so this will kind of give you that. Okay, so if electron kind of jumps from n equal to 1 to n equal to 2, that radiation from the incoming radiation will be removed. We are assuming that incoming radiation containing all the levels of the energies, so that energy will be removed, that energy will be reduced, so that will appear as a line into the certain for that frequency that will correspond to this one. Suppose you had an energy that falls onto the electron, and electron directly goes into the n equal to 3 energy level, then you will get you will have a line corresponding to the different wavelength, different frequency, and so on. Okay, but suppose you had already electron into the energy equal to 2 level, and then energy equal to then radiation falls into it, and it goes to the another level, you will get the frequency that will correspond to this one. Okay, so my question is to you is this one. So what is the lowest wavelength that you will get into the hydrogen spectrum? At least you can say to me, you have to calculate that as an homework. What will be the lowest wavelength that you can get? So let me put it this way, because you cannot do here whiteboard. You have here this, the wavelength corresponding to different these values. This is called Lyman series. So if you had a spectrum observed, you will see certain absorption line, and this absorption line corresponding to this energy levels, this changes is known as a Lyman series. Corresponding to this is known as a Balmer series. corresponding to this is known as Paschen series. Which one of this will have out of these three series of the wavelengths, three series of the absorption lines or absorption bands, which one will have a lowest wavelength? My question is, Lyman will have a lowest wavelength, Balmer will have lowest wavelength, or Paschen will have lowest wavelength?
Paschen series.
Paschen will have lowest wavelength. That's your answer?
No, sir. Lowest frequency.
Lowest frequency will have Paschen. I asked the wavelength.
So Lyman series.
Lyman will have
Balmer.
Okay. Now, Akhil, you said some answer.
Sir, Balmer series will give some lowest wavelength, I guess.
Yes, sir. Balmer series.
And of course, answer is the past. Lyman was the correct answer, but you thought that Balmer. Can you tell me why you thought that Balmer will be lowest?
Because I thought, sir, because it is having, as you said, sir, for Lyman series, it's a shortest wavelength, na? So that will be equal to that Balmer series of this hydrogen one. So I guess I thought it will be Balmer's.
Of course, mu depends on the energy. So mu depends on the delta E. Okay.
Okay.
If your delta E is very high, then your H mu will be high. So H is constant basically, so your mu will be high.
Will be C by yes, sir.
So if you had suppose you had an hydrogen atom into ground state, that is when all the that his electron is into the orbit n equal to 1, okay, and you supplied it such a large energy that the hydrogen completely lost its electron, okay, it went to the infinity all the way, okay. That is the highest, that is the lowest wavelength or the highest frequency you can see in absorption line of the hydrogen spectrum. Okay, so that's all for today. If there are any questions, we can take it. Let me see if anything I needed to cover in this. Anyway, so yeah, just as a side note, so Bohr, you know that Bohr got the Nobel Prize for this his atomic model, and that was I think in 1922. And so when he got the Nobel Prize, he is from Holland, and I've forgotten the name of the city, but all the people were happy. I mean, imagine that some Indian guy gets a Nobel Prize, how happy we will feel. So all the citizen, all the fellow countrymen felt very happy about his getting the Nobel Prize. And they gifted him a home. And that home was, they specifically for him gifted a home that was next to the brewery that was making the beer. And they provided directly coming from the brewery to his home. So whenever he wanted to drink, he can just open the tap and drink the beer. So I think lucky he was that he was not from Gujarat. So,
sir, can
yes, Danny.
sir, can you please provide PPTs of these lectures?
See, all the PPTs are based on that Liao's book actually. What is happening is that every week I am kind of redoing the PPT. So maybe in the end of the lecture series or something, I will consider giving it, because right now they're like a half-cooked food kind of things. So right now, whatever today I wanted to cover, these PPTs are in order, but what I am going to cover into the next week, that PPT are still there, and that has to be modified. Okay, so okay. But if you follow, there is an an article available on the internet, gender by gender. I think Tejas might have shared with you. Then also I am almost following that article basically. But many of the content or symbols which I am using in my equations or something, they are from the they are from the Leo's book. So if you are following that gender article, I think it's gender 2011, then only sometimes you might have difference into the symbols or something, but otherwise content wise they are same. Any question from the previous lectures or anything you wanted to cover? Let me see if I wanted to, everything I have covered today, which I wanted to cover. Okay, so I just recalling what are the assignments I have given to you. So you have to do the plotting of these things. Yeah, I was told that not all of you have the computer. I think about 5 students don't have the laptop or something. They are accessing this through their mobile phone. It is because of your financial reasons. Then we can't do anything about it. But if you have money available with you, my advice to all of the physics students is that buy a computer, buy a laptop, even a simple one you may get for the 15,000-20,000 rupees. Why it is important is that because lot of materials that is available onto the internet. So if you are like studying into your college, you will not be able to get everything that you can teach. But if you have computers, you can access the MIT lectures, you can access the IIT lectures, you can see the experiments really done into the laboratories and all those things. So, and besides that, there are a lot of articles that you will require to access. You will require, as long as you are going to be into this field, if you particularly choose the research career, then you are going to need anyway a computer. So better to buy it early so you can use it from very beginning. As far as the plotting goes, simple way of doing this plotting is to use some spreadsheet like Microsoft Excel or Google Docs or something. You put the in one column values of the lemma, and then in another column you can write down the equation. But there are some websites are also available where you write down the equation and then the website will do the plotting or something. But anyway, whatever you use it, bring this plot. If you are not able to use any of the electronic resources for plotting, you can always use your old calculators. Take the graph book, the graph books are available. Plot it with hand and take a picture with phone and send it to the Akhil. Okay. Other assignments I wanted you to do is that derive the function of Planck's function in terms of the wavelength instead of frequency. Okay, I have shown both the functions to you, but what I want, you start with the function which is available in frequency, and you derive the function in terms of the wavelength. That is it's very trivial as such if you are able to do it, but I want you to still do it. Okay, and there is a reason for that. I will tell you later. Third thing I wanted to do is that we derived the Wien's law. We derived from Planck's law. We derived the Wien's law. Okay, by differentiating the Planck's law for the wavelength. And what you can do is that I want you to derive the Wien's law for the frequency. Start Planck's law with frequency, differentiate it, and derive all the way to the Wien's law. And then you get a constant. That constant I want to see. Okay. And then, of course, you can calculate the maximum wavelength for temperature 5 degrees centigrade, maximum frequency for 5 degrees centigrade. Any other things I have given as an assignment today?
Yes,
No,
sir.
Okay. Okay then. So I'm still
Yes, sir.
online. If there are questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we will wind up. Yeah, so why this absorption line or these things we want to know? The reason we want to know is that suppose the radiation is traveling from the top of the atmosphere and coming to the ground. There are a lot of molecules into the atmosphere, and these molecules will absorb the some light. Okay, and you want to figure out how much light is already being absorbed and how much light is being able to pass through the atmosphere and reach to the ground. Okay, same way we can do the reverse exercise. How much light is absorbed when the long wave radiation emitted from the Earth's surface and went to the space. If you remember that very last lecture, very first slide of this lecture, we derived this equation. Okay, that equation tells you the equilibrium temperature for the planet with atmosphere, and to get that number, we need to find out F. Okay, what is the F? F is a fraction of the light absorbed into the atmosphere. Okay, so if you know the F, so if you want to find out the F theoretically, you need to find out how much absorption is taking place. Then you want to find out the line of the, so what, come back here. As you know, the total amount of the radiation is area under this curve, and because of these lines, because of these dips corresponding to different lines, this area under the curve is reduced. Okay, because that energy is being lost to the atmosphere. So we want to find out how much area is under this curve is reduced because of these lines, and that is why we need to understand that how do we calculate the area under the curve, particularly when there are lines present, when there are this kind of dips are present. Okay, if there are no questions, then I will log out. Thank you very much. I hope you also have my email address. You can also send me email if you have some doubt or something, that if you're doing some exercise and you think that you need explanation or something. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay then. Goodbye.
Yes, sir. Take care, sir. Bye, sir.
Bye.